DFL. I got to know Collin about 12 years ago when our son Jacob was diagnosed with a lethal condition called Duchenne muscular dystrophy. And we had to start the fight of our life to try and save Jacob. I hope nobody in this room ever has to go through what we went through or face an issue and watch their child deteriorate and die. But if you do, I'd like to share a little bit so hopefully others can dream their dreams, melt their mountains, and stand up for the little guy. Our policymakers like Collin cannot do what they need to do without your support. Prior to Jacob's diagnosis, I had no political or lobbying experience. I'm a regular mom, I'm a nurse, juggling 3 kids, going in 3 directions at once. My husband's a farmer. I wasn't at all active. I voted. I had never been to a DFL meeting. There are 40 different types of muscular dystrophy. Duchenne is the most common and catastrophic. It affects 1 in every 3,500 births. Boys are born with it, and girls are born carriers. Most often, they don't even know it, like in our family. It's a public health risk. These bright, articulate boys' muscles begin to deteriorate. Their legs collapse from under them, and they die in their late teens and early 20s. They all will need a ventilator. When Jacob was diagnosed, I went to find treatment, and there was no treatment. I went to look for research. There was no research. At the NIH, there was 4 minor studies going on, and I knew Jacob would not live to see college. Despite being the #1 lethal genetic disorder in the world, Duchenne muscular dystrophy was funded at less than $200 per patient per year. Other diseases of less morbidity and mortality are funded at over $2,000 per patient per year. But parents can make a difference. We explained the problems to Collin and the late Paul Wellstone. And I think they both were surprised when we were able to get report language in both the House and the Senate. And it forced NIH to have the first ever scientific workshop on Duchenne muscular dystrophy. Healthcare policy is very complicated, yet both of these men authored a bill for my son Jacob, our son Jacob, and 100,000 other boys. I then met with any and every member of Congress I could. The ones I couldn't meet with, I called. And many times when I was calling in the House, the Health LA would say, Collin authored this bill? I said, yes, he's my congressman. She said, he doesn't author bills like this. I said, I know. She said, well, we really must need it then. If he was known as fiscally liberal, I never would have got the number of votes we needed to pass this out of the House. Collin took this on for our son Jacob, who was, and is still struggling with Duchenne muscular dystrophy. In 2001, the Muscular Dystrophy Care Act was the only healthcare legislation passed in the 107th Congress. This bill created the first ever disease-specific funding which directs NIH to establish the first ever muscular dystrophy centers of excellence. The first 3, the Congressional Budget Office estimated at $54 million. There are now 7 muscular dystrophy centers of excellence, and they've been renamed, and this is still hard for me, the Paul D. Wellstone Muscular Dystrophy Centers of Excellence. Not only did Collin author this bill, he took time to go around the House floor with a clipboard to get co-sponsors for this bill. I have never seen that on C-SPAN. He got every member from the Minnesota delegation to sign on to that bill, and I have not seen that happen since. I know some of you see the rough, tough exterior, but what we see is a heart of gold. We need someone tough to fight for our district in Washington. When Jacob was in the 2nd grade, his teacher had the students write about if you could trade places with anyone in the world. Jacob all the students in the class chose to be a professional athlete or movie star or singer, not Jacob. Jacob chose to be his brother Ben so he could play football with his friends. You see, Jacob's heroes aren't movie stars or professional athletes. Jacob's heroes are people like Collin because they're trying to save his life. Our bill that Collin wrote and created National Institute of Health Centers of Excellence around the country that now supports research, and there are promising new drugs in clinical trials. Drugs that just might save Jacob's life. Now, I know Collin is more of an A guy, but I want to send him back to Washington to hold the special interest feet to the fire, such as the pharmaceutical companies who are withholding life-saving medications for dying children. They refuse to release it to the FDA and let the FDA make the decision whether or not this child should get a drug. Instead, the venture capitalists at the pharmaceutical companies are making those decisions. Collin, thank you for fighting for Jacob and 100,000 boys. I'm proud to have you as my representative to Congress.